Samsara dhava nalalida loka Tranaya karanya ganaganatvam Pratikshanasva Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditya Madhyan Manasora Sena Vansha Kampa Shrutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shivigrahara Dhananitya Nana Shingaratan Mandir Majanado Yutasa Bhaktam Shani Unjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvedashi Bhagavad Prasada Swadana Triptan Haribhakta Sangha Kriptaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Radhika Madhavayora Para Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namna Artikshana Swadana Lalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Nikunja Yuna Ratikeli Siddhai Yaya Libir Yuktir Apikshaniya Tatrati Daksharati Valabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Sakshadarit Vina Samasa Shastre Uktastata Bhavyata Eva Sadvi Kintu Prabhurya Priyaeva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutopi Dayam Subham Sasya Yasyat Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. Namo Vishnu Pradaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vashacha Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Nila Madhu Radha Nila Madhu Radhe. Jaya Radha Nila Madhu Radha Nila Madhu Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narsimha Jaya Lakshmi Narsimha Jaya Lakshmi Narsimha Jaya Lakshmi Narsimha. Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita. Nitagora Haribo, 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 Nitagora Haribo.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlade Lade Daine. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Shilatankarnakhalaye. Eto Narsimha Parato Narsimha. Yato Yato Yami Tato Narsimha. Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha. Narasimha Madim Charanam Prapade. Tava Kara Kamala Vare Nakam Adbhuta Chingam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Dhanuvringa Keshavadrita Narohari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare. Jaya Narasimha Dev, Narasimha Dev, Narasimha Dev, Jaya Narasimha Dev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. श्री श्री भक्त श्री श्री नरसिंह देव भगवान की, भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की।
विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशवाय विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशवाय विष्णु भक्ति पदे देवी सत्यवत्याय नमो नमः। तुलसी महारानी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी। नमो नमः नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी। नमो नमः। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषी। कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषी। राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषी। जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तरवांच पूर्ण हो। जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तरवांच पूर्ण हो। कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी। कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी। मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास। मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास। माया ने हेरी वो सादा युगल रूपरासी। युगल रूपरासी। એ નિવેદન ધરો સખીરાનું ગાતા કરો. સેવાધિકાર કરો નિજ દાસી. દીન કૃષ્ણ દાસે કો એ નમો હોય. શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદ પ્રેમે સદા ન બાસી. શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદ પ્રેમે સદા ન બાસી. સદા ન બાસી. નમો નમઃ તુલસી કૃષ્ણ પ્રેયસી. નમો નમઃ તુલસી કૃષ્ણ પ્રેયસી. નમો નમઃ. यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे. यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे. यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणं पदे पदे. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे. जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी. महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी. देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी. निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल. जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद. जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव. मती वृंदा देवी की जय. वृंदाये तुलसीदेवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवते नमो नमः। ताय तुलसी देवी प्रियाय वृंदाये तुलसीदेवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवते नमो नमः। प्रियाय वृंदाये तुलसीदेवी प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्ति प्रतिदेवी सत्यवते नमो नमः।
Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Yananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Shapitam Nena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Andeham Shri Guru Shri Jataha Pachakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Visakya Vitamsa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Dinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Dinamini Shivasavani Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasidanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishwaraya Shakshar Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Baba Bhumistvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Sri Jaganatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Tarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Amne Gurachase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Sulatur Pangur Mama Manda Matir Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpa Dumadaha Shimad Ratna Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasaram Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatak Striyesturna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Ramasamita Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vrite Susurabhir Abhipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Grananda Matarinda Dalayataksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadva Namalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranay Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Jibanga Lalitani Taprakasam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vikrahasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesu Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragam Yo Vayo Ratapi Manaso Muni Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitum Jagananda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasta Jagananda Chayayadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Sukta Yameva Nigama Pratitastuvanti Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Patibhavita Bhesta Virya Eva Nijarupa Dayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gural Swarupam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Swasesu Vasadadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahman Hiskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagananda Satani Sute Jagunya Tad Visaya Veda Vitaya Mahanam Sadva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasuya Praninam Patipalam Smaratam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jayaya Jasram Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesa Haridama Sute 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 Te Prabhavani Jaya Vihitascha Yena Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Sristi Stiti Pralaya Sada Vasakti Reka Chaye Vyasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chitesta Tesa Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjaya Te Naitata Pritakaste Hetu Yasam Bhutam Apitata Samapaiti Karyat Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departed Ebhita Santanam Abhyapetya Depayat Ebhita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadra Gebhicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajare Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Shakti Mavalamya Param Swamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Niswasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Villaja Jagannathanata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavisesu Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesana Jaisatesya Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitat Pratatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadana Vidanu Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbad Vande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahika Ganam Ambun Rudus Asja Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savitasa Kilagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Resesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayasta Pamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Tayasta Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrinda Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhan Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdati Kinchicha Bhakti Bhajam Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasavya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tam Mapurete Govinda Mahadi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiyakanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumish Chintamani Ganama Itoyam Amrutam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chiranandam Jyoti Param Apitata Swadyam Apichasa Yatra Shirabi Shiradi Bihi Shabati Shirabi Byascha Suman Nimesa Dakyova Rajatina Hiyatrapi Samaya Bajay Swita Dvipam Tamaham Ihagolakam Itiyam Vidantas Te Santakshati Virachara Katipaye Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I, from my respectful basis of the lotus feet, is such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy names dancing, ecstasy, singing, and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in a temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis, who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all of the scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master as a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, verse number 12. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Sa eva sadhu charamo bhavanam asaditaste mad anugrahayat Yamam nilokan raha utsrijantam Distya dadritsvan vasadanunritya Sa, that Asa of those, Sadhu, O honest one, Charama, the ultimate, Bhavanam, of all your incarnations as Vasu, Asadita, now achieved, Te, unto you, Mat, my, Anugraha, mercy, Yat, as it is, Yat, because, Mam, me, near Lokan, the planets of the conditioned souls, Raha, in seclusion, Utsrijantam, while quitting, Distya, by seeing, Dadrisvan, what you have seen, Vishada Anuvritya, by unflinching devotion. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When a person is fully conversant with knowledge of the Lord, O honest one, your present life is the last and the supermost, because in this term of life you have been awarded my ultimate favor. Now you can go to my transcendental abode, Vaikuntha, by leaving this universe of conditioned living entities. Your visit to me in this lonely place, because of your pure and unflinching devotional service, is a great boon for you. Boon means a great asset, a great benefit. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When a person is fully conversant with knowledge of the Lord, as far as can be known by a perfect living entity, In the liberated state, he is allowed to enter into the spiritual sky where the Vaikuntha planets exist. The Lord was sitting in a lonely place, just about to disappear from the vision of the inhabitants of this universe, and Uddhava was fortunate to see him even at that time, and thus received the Lord's permission to enter Vaikuntha. The Lord is everywhere at all times, and his appearance and disappearance are merely the experience of the inhabitants of a particular universe. He is just like the sun. The sun does not appear or disappear in the sky. It is only in the experience of men that in the morning the sun rises and in the evening the sun sets. The Lord is simultaneously both in Vaikuntha and everywhere within and without Vaikuntha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O honest one, your present life is the last and the supermost, because in this term of life you have been awarded my ultimate favor. Now you can go to my transcendental abode, Vaikuntha, by leaving this universe of conditioned living entities. Your visit to me in this lonely place, because of your pure and unflinching devotional service, is a great boon for you. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, this is Krishna speaking to Uddhava. And we shouldn't doubt that this has actually happened, because doubts are demons when it comes to understanding Krishna consciousness. That is, the supreme absolute truth is Krishna, the cause. He's the cause of all causes. He's never born, he never dies, he never gets old. He is eternally the master of everything spiritual and material. He's the source of everything. And he can also reabsorb the entire material creation and then manifest it again. And he can populate the whole universe with all the different species. He can incarnate in every one of the species to try and help those species make some spiritual advancement. So these are all impossible things for ordinary human beings to do. But they should not deny the possibility for Krishna to do all of these things. That's called faith, based on Shastric evidence and the statements made by Krishna himself, as well as the statements made by the members of the Parampara, or perfected devotees throughout history. Now, we need to hear this on a regular basis, because by hearing, we actually learn something much better than simply by reading. And this is explained in different places. For example, in the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it says, one second, find it. It says, it's basically, it says that hearing is the basic principle of understanding. So when we hear Krishna Katha, we become purified of the desire for sense gratification, and we begin to make spiritual advancement from that point on. So it's very important that we constantly hear these transcendental messages of the Lord. And it says, Ashtradanak Munayo, Ashtradanak Cha. Now, Ajnas Chas Radadanas Cha, Samsayatma Vinasyati. Nayam Lokosti Na Paro Na Sukam Samsayatmanaha. So this is 4th chapter, 40th verse, which says, but ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. Nayam lokosti na paro na sukam samsayatmanaha. And then in the purport, Prabhupada writes, out of many standard and authoritative revealed scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita is the best. Persons who are almost like animals have no faith in or knowledge of the standard revealed scriptures, and some, even though they have knowledge of or can cite passages from the revealed scriptures, have actually no faith in these words. And even though others may have faith in scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, they do not believe in or worship the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Such persons cannot have any standing in Krishna consciousness. They fall down. Out of all the above-mentioned persons, those who have no faith and are always doubtful make no progress at all. Men without faith in God and His revealed word find no good in this world, nor in the next. For them, there is no happiness whatsoever. One should therefore follow the principles of revealed scriptures with faith and thereby be raised to the platform of knowledge. Only this knowledge will help one become promoted to the transcendental platform of spiritual understanding. In other words, doubtful persons have no status whatsoever in spiritual emancipation. One should therefore follow in the footsteps of great acharyas who are in the disciplic succession and thereby attain success. Wow, this is a very important purport and verse, 4th chapter, 40th verse. So, how do you get faith? We get it by associating with people of faith. And how do you lose faith in Krishna? You associate with people who have no faith in Krishna. It's very simple. Therefore it says, Tasmat agyana sam bhutam hritstam gyana shinatmana chitvainam samsayam yogam atistotista bharata. Therefore the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. So this is Krishna's advice here, and it's very good advice. In the purport, Prabhupada says, the yoga system instructed in this chapter is called Sanatana Yoga, or eternal activities performed by the living entity. And this is the 4th chapter, 42nd verse. And it says, this yoga has 2 divisions of sacrificial actions. One is called sacrifice of one's material possessions, and the other is called knowledge of self, which is pure spiritual activity. If sacrifice of one's material possessions is not dovetailed for spiritual realization, then such sacrifice becomes material. But one who performs such sacrifices with a spiritual objective or in devotional service makes a perfect sacrifice. When we come to spiritual activities, we find that these are also divided into 2, namely understanding of one's own self or one's constitutional position, and the truth regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who follows the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is can very easily understand these 2 important divisions of spiritual knowledge. In other words, you understand who you are, what is your constitutional position as the eternal servant of Krishna. And then you understand the truth regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Like I sort of summarized in the beginning, he's the source of everything. He is not born. He does not get old. He does not die. He's the complete controller of everything spiritual and material. He is present everywhere in the material world as the Paramatma. in the heart of every living entity and even in every atom of the universe. He sometimes appears in the material world for showing some of his transcendental pastimes that he has in the spiritual world in order to entice living entities to take an interest in him. And when he sees that there's a devotee interested in hearing about him, he blesses that devotee with knowledge and also with the conviction to remain in Krishna consciousness and not fall down. So all these things and many more are unique qualities of Krishna. So first we have to understand what is our constitutional position as the eternal servant of the Lord, always subordinate to the Lord. And then we have to understand the unique position of Krishna. Okay, so that's called the two divisions of knowledge. Okay, so one who follows the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is can very easily understand these two important divisions of spiritual knowledge. For him, there is no difficulty in obtaining perfect knowledge of the self as part and parcel of the Lord. And such understanding is beneficial, for such a person can easily understand the transcendental activities of the Lord. In the beginning of this chapter, the transcendental activities of the Lord were discussed by the Supreme Lord himself. One who does not understand the instructions of the Gita is faithless and is to be considered to be misusing the fragmental independence awarded to him by the Lord. In spite of such instructions, one who does not understand the real nature of the Lord as the eternal, blissful, all-knowing personality of Godhead is certainly fool number one. Ignorance can be removed by gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness. Notice he says gradual acceptance. That's what we're doing. Every day we're gradually accepting more and more knowledge about Krishna, about our position in relationship with Krishna, and so forth. In spite of such instructions, one who does not understand the real nature of the Lord as the eternal, blissful, all-knowing personality of Godhead is certainly fool number one. Ignorance can be removed by gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness. So, what is the gradual acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness? Lifestyle adjustment, going to bed early, waking up early, taking full benefit of 3 hours before sunrise, called the Brahma Muhurta, for spiritual advancement, and regularly attending the programs in the temple, especially in the morning time, and engaging in practical devotional service, associating with devotees. All these things are part of the gradual development of Krishna consciousness and acceptance of the principles of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices to the demigods, sacrifice to Brahman, sacrifice in celibacy, in household life, in controlling the senses, in practicing mystic yoga, in penance, in foregoing material possessions, in studying the Vedas, and in partaking of the social institution called Varnashrama Dharma. All these are known as sacrifice, and all of them are based on regulated action. So regulated action is most important. That means doing the same thing at the same time every day. So that type of disciplined life is the life of a real devotee. And therefore, the devotee makes tangible advancement every day because of being very regulated in their use of time and energy. Krishna consciousness is awakened by different types of sacrifices to the demigods, sacrifice to Brahman, sacrifice in celibacy, in household life, in controlling the senses, in practicing mystic yoga, in penance, in foregoing material possessions, in studying the Vedas, and in partaking of the social institution called Varnashram Dharma. All of these are known as sacrifice, and all of them are based on regulated action. But within all these activities, the important factor is self-realization. One who seeks that objective is the real student of Bhagavad Gita, but one who doubts the authority of Krishna falls back. One is therefore advised to study Bhagavad Gita or any other scripture under a bona fide spiritual master with service and surrender. A bona fide spiritual master is in a disciplic succession from time eternal, and he does not deviate at all from the instructions of the Supreme Lord as they are imparted millions of years ago to the Sun God, from whom the instructions of Bhagavad Gita have come down to the earthly kingdom. One should therefore follow the path of Bhagavad Gita as it is expressed in the Gita itself, and beware of self-interested people after personal aggrandizement who deviate others from the actual path. The Lord is definitely the Supreme Person, and his activities are transcendental. One who understands this is a liberated person from the very beginning of his study of Bhagavad Gita. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the fourth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of transcendental knowledge. Okay, so this is fourth chapter, 42nd verse. Very important points, very significant points to know what is actually Krishna consciousness and how to advance in Krishna consciousness and the different, steps of acquiring knowledge. First, knowledge of the self, and then knowledge of Krishna. And then all of this is leading toward constant engagement in devotional service. That's the purpose of Vedic knowledge, is to convince a person to be always engaged in devotional service and not deviate at all. Okay. So this is further explained in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where it says, second canto, chapter 5, verse number 30. From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest, as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha, Prajapati, the Aswini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of the Adityas, and Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all come into existence. Okay, so this is a part, or this is a verse in the cause of all causes, or it's explaining how the creation took place, material creation, of course. The spiritual world is always existing, but the material world sometimes is created and sometimes is destroyed. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, Vaikarika is the neutral stage of creation, and Tejas is the initiative of creation, while Tamas is the full display of material creation under the spell of the darkness of ignorance. Manufacture of the necessities of life in factories and workshops, excessively prominent in the age of Kali, or in the age of the machine, is the summit stage of the quality of darkness. Wow. Because, factually, there is no necessity for the commodities manufactured. Human society primarily requires food for subsistence, shelter for sleeping, defense for protection, and commodities for satisfaction of the senses. The senses are the practical signs of life, as will be explained in the next verse. Human civilization is meant for purifying the senses, and objects of sense satisfaction should be supplied as much as absolutely required, but not for aggravating artificial sensory needs. Food, shelter, defense, and sense gratification are all needs in material existence. Otherwise, in its pure, uncontaminated state of original life, the living entity has no such needs. The needs are therefore artificial, and in the pure state of life, there are no such needs. As such, increasing the artificial needs, as is the standard of modern civilization, or advancing the economic development of human society, is a sort of engagement in darkness without knowledge. By such engagement, human energy is spoiled because human energy is primarily meant for purifying the senses. in order to engage them in satisfying the senses of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord, being the supreme possessor of spiritual senses, is the master of the senses. Rishikesha, Rishika means the senses, and Isha means the master. The Lord is not the servant of the senses, or, in other words, he is not directed by the dictation of the senses, but the conditioned souls, or the individual living entities, are servants of the senses. They are conducted by the direction or dictation of the senses, and therefore material civilization is a kind of engagement in sense gratification only. The standard of human civilization should be to cure the disease of sense gratification, and one can do this simply by becoming an agent for satisfying the spiritual senses of the Lord. The senses are never to be stopped in their engagements, but one should purify them by engaging them in the pure service of sense gratification of the master of the senses, meaning Krishna. This is the instruction of the whole Bhagavad Gita. See, when you read Srimad Bhagavatam, then you get a much deeper understanding of Bhagavad Gita. And he's saying here that the whole instruction of the Bhagavad Gita is how to purify the senses, and not to stop their engagement like the Mayavadis want to do, but just becoming an agent for satisfying the spiritual senses of the Lord. The senses are never to be stopped in their engagement, but one should purify them by engaging them in the pure service of sense gratification of the master of the senses. So we should work to please the senses of Krishna by using our senses in that endeavor. But people get it the backwards. They think that we should work to please our own senses. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. Why? By going to Disneyland, by eating meat and all kinds of things, and by engaging in illicit sex, and by doing this and by doing that. And so they got it the exactly opposite to what the truth is. The truth is, our senses are meant to please the senses of Krishna. Then we become liberated from the whole cycle of birth and death. This is the instruction of the whole Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wanted, first of all, to satisfy his own senses by his decision not to fight with his kinsmen and friends. But Lord Sri Krishna taught him the Bhagavad Gita just to purify Arjuna's decision for sense gratification. Therefore, Arjuna agreed to satisfy the senses of the Lord, and thus he fought the battle of Kurukshetra as the Lord desired. The Vedas instruct us to get out of the existence of darkness and go forward into the path of light. Tamasima Jyotirgama. The path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Misguided men or less intelligent men follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord by following the path shown by Arjuna and other devotees of the Lord. On the contrary, they artificially try to stop the activities of senses, which is the yoga system, or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord, and that's the jnana yoga system, or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord, jnana system. The devotees, however, are above the yogis and the jnanis, because pure devotees do not deny the senses of the Lord. They want to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Only because of the darkness of ignorance do the yogis and jnanis deny the senses of the Lord and thus artificially try to control the activities of the diseased senses. In the diseased condition of the senses, there is too much engagement of the senses in increasing material needs, right? Products produced in factories around the world, they're all actually unnecessary material needs. Right? So every day there's a new product on the market. So, and there's advertisements for it. So you can go on the internet right now and see it. the latest new products. Look that up. The latest new products. You know, it can be a new type of telescope. Right? You can see everything your neighbor is doing using this telescope. You know. Or a new type of toy for increasing sex, or a new type of this, or a new type of that. Every day there are new products coming on the market, and they're all unnecessary. Do you see anything?
Yeah, man. So there are lots of the whole page is filled with all cool tech gadgets. And they say the 100 cool tech gadgets you need in 2022.
You need. You need.
Get your life in gear with all the year's best.
Get your life in what?
Get your life in gear. Gear.
Gear. Not gear.
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 With all the year's best new gadgets. It's hard to stay up to date with the ever-growing, forever changing tech space. But luckily for you, that's where we come in. We're constantly testing new products, researching new trends in the tech space, and updating our list of cool gadgets accordingly. At the
gadgets to complicate your life.
There is a conference, the largest conference called CES 2022, a yearly event that highlights the latest innovation and emerging trends in the tech space. We saw top tech brands showcase products that will upgrade your home office even more, transform your living room into a legitimate home theater alternative, step up your gaming setup, and improve your wellness routine, all while keeping you safe and sane.
Wow, we really need that. You see, this is what Prabhupada's saying. That he says here that it says such manufacturing enterprises by human society are in the mode of darkness, because factually there is no necessity for the commodities manufactured. So it's exactly the opposite of what they're saying there. They're saying, "Oh, you got to get knowledge of these new products. You know, it's going to improve your life, your health, your this, your that. You know, but actually, it's going to ruin it. It's the exact opposite." Okay. So it says, the path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. No, the Vedas instruct us to get out of the existence of darkness and go forward on the path of light, tamasima jyotirgama. The path of light is therefore to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Misguided men or less intelligent men follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord by following the path shown by Arjuna and other devotees of the Lord. So, when it says they follow the path of self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord. Well, that's the Mayavadis. They deny that the Lord has senses. They deny that the Lord has a body. They deny everything. They deny the Lord by doing that. If I say that God doesn't have any eyes, ears, nose, skin, tongue, genital, what is that? Does that sound like you're glorifying God or you're insulting God? You tell me. If I say, oh, you don't have eyes, you don't have a nose, you don't have ears, you don't have a tongue, you don't have skin, then what am I saying? Am I glorifying you or am I vilifying you? You see. So that the Mayavadis are the worst operatis because they deny the existence of Krishna as a person. You see. So therefore, they're following the path to self-realization without any attempt to satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord. Rather, they should follow the path of Arjuna and other devotees of the Lord who were trying to satisfy the senses of the Lord. On the contrary, they artificially try to stop the activities of the senses. That's the yoga system. Or they deny the transcendental senses of the Lord. That's the jnana system. The devotees, however, are above the yogis and jnanis because pure devotees do not deny the senses of the Lord. They want to satisfy the senses of the Lord. Only because of the darkness of ignorance do the yogis and jnanis deny the senses of the Lord and thus artificially try to control the activities of the diseased senses. In the diseased condition of the senses, there is too much engagement of the senses in increasing material needs. When one comes to see the disadvantage of aggravating the sense activities, one is called a jnani. And when one tries to stop the activities of the senses by the practice of yogic principles, he's called a yogi. But when one is fully aware of the transcendental senses of the Lord and tries to satisfy the Lord's senses, one is called a devotee of the Lord. The devotees of the Lord do not try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor do they artificially stop the activities of the senses, but they do voluntarily engage the purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, as was done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. So, let's say a very dear person comes to your house, like your grandmother, for example, and then you let's say you're following some type of yoga system, right? So you say to your grandmother, you say, "Oh, Grandma, I'm doing yoga right now, so I don't have any time to cook for you, and I didn't really prepare any place for you to sleep, it's no use taking a bath or anything like that because I turned the water off to save some money." And you go through a list of all these things. Are you welcoming your grandmother, or are you telling her, "Get the hell out of the house"? You say. So that's exactly what the Mayavadis are doing, and the yogis. They're denying Krishna. They're not validating Krishna. They're denying him, and they're just using their own senses for a type of sense gratification. It's not actually purifying. It's actually contaminating. Just like some people, they do this type of yoga where they don't talk and they just meditate for like 10 days, right? Vipassana, right? So, and they think, "Oh, this is a wonderful thing." Like I did a program at some man's house a month ago, and he invited me. He said, "I want you to come. You know, you came before. You did very good puja in my house. I want you to come again." I said, "Okay." So I went there, and I did some fire sacrifice and chanting and things like that, and I gave a lecture. So afterwards, he was talking to me, and then he started talking about how he's really very, very appreciative of Vipassana. He goes there periodically. And when he said that, I looked at him and I said, "That's a complete waste of time." He couldn't believe I said that, right? And he got stunned. You know, I said, "That's complete nonsense." And he said, I mean, he didn't try, he just, congratulated me for doing all this nice stuff in his house, right? And then he thought he was saying the right thing about, how he's enjoying going to Vipassana. And I said, "It's a complete waste of time and it's nonsense." I mean, he was like, he couldn't believe I said that. Let's put it like that. He was tongue-tied, right? Well, should I lie to the man or should I tell him the truth? See, it is a waste of time. And nobody makes any spiritual advancement by going to those sessions. See, why? Because it's the opposite of what you should do. You're trying to deny the senses rather than use the senses in the service of Krishna's senses. So they deny both their own senses and Krishna's senses by doing that type of vipassana, which is basically a Buddhist thing that's been readapted by some Hindus. It has nothing to do with real yoga, because real yoga means understanding Krishna, the Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if you read the Yoga Shastras by Patanjali, it's all about understanding the existence of the Supersoul. That's Patanjali Yoga, right? Of course, it's not being practiced properly now. So, therefore, when they do actually come to the point of seeing Paramatma in their heart, they say, Tatvamasi, that's me, right? And then they want to merge into the Paramatma, which is another type of Mayavadi merging. You merge either into Brahmajyoti or you merge into the body of the Lord. So two types of merging. Like Sisupala, everybody saw his soul merge into the body of Krishna. So that's an impersonal realization of the Lord. Okay, so the devotees of the Lord do not try to deny the senses of the Lord, nor do they artificially stop the actions of the senses, but they do voluntarily engage the purified senses in the service of the master of the senses, meaning Krishna, as was done by Arjuna, thereby easily attaining the perfection of satisfying the Lord, the ultimate goal of all perfection. Okay, so then there's more information in the Canto 2, Chapter 6, verse number 20, which says, the spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond this material world, and it is especially meant for those who will never be reborn. Others, who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow celibacy vows, must live within the 3 material worlds, meaning the upper planets, middle planets, lower planets. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, the climax of the system of Varnashram Dharma, or Sanatana Dharma, is clearly expressed here in this particular verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. The highest benefit that can be awarded to a human being is to train him to be detached from sex life, particularly because it is only due to sex indulgence that the conditioned life of material existence continues birth after birth. Whoa! Completely opposite to the whole ethos, E-T-H-O-S, look that word up. The whole ethos of this time, of this period of history, of this period of the world. Ethos, E-T-H-O-S, what does that mean? It means what's most espoused or most recommended at this period of time. You know, the culture at this new period of time. Go ahead. What does it say?
Yeah, so ethos means the characteristic spirit of a culture, era, or a community as manifested in its beliefs and aspirations.
So what is that culture today? Okay, it's alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, marijuana, and all types of intoxication, pipes, smoking a pipe, chewing tobacco. All these things is part of the ethos of today, right? All kinds of drugs, legal drugs, illegal drugs, right? It's sex and sex diseases like gonorrhea, syphilis, and AIDS, and monkeypox, and Ebola, and all kinds of different sexually transmitted or transmitted type of diseases, including COVID and other things, biological warfare products like COVID, like other types of poisonous things that are being spread. And then is meat eating, which is a very dangerous thing. There's whole web pages explaining the dangers of meat eating. And then there's gambling, and there's so many negative things that happen to people when they get addicted to gambling. But the thing that is most injurious is illicit sex. And this is what Prabhupada is saying here. The highest benefit that can be awarded to a human being is to train him or her to be detached from sex life, particularly because it is only due to sex indulgence that the conditioned life of material existence continues birth after birth. Human civilization in which there is no control of sex life is a fourth-class civilization, because in such an atmosphere there's no liberation of the soul encaged in the material body. Well, this is what's being taught. This is the ethos. This is what's in movies all the time. This is what is in books. There's whole books about sex, right? And they teach it in school. They have sex education for. It's going down to kindergarten now. And this is the one reason why people stay in the material world. This is why they came to the material world. We came to the material world. And it's what's keeping us in the material world. And they're espousing it. They're glorifying it. They're saying it's an important thing to learn this in kindergarten. This is crazy. The people are going nuts, right? So Prabhupada says, human civilization in which there is no control of sex life is a fourth-class civilization, because in such an atmosphere there's no liberation of the soul encaged in the material body. Birth, death, old age, and disease are related to the material body, and they have nothing to do with the spirit soul. But as long as the bodily attachment for sensual enjoyment is encouraged, and that's what's happening today, that's being encouraged, the individual spirit soul is forced to continue the repetition of birth and death on account of the material body, which is compared to garments subjected to the law of deterioration. That's what a body is. It's subjected to the law of deterioration. The soul is not subjected to the law of deterioration, but the body is. It's a bad asset to have a material body, because it's subject to deterioration. In order to award the highest benefit of human life, the Varnashrama system trains the follower to adopt the vow of celibacy, beginning from the order of brahmachari. The brahmachari life is for students who are educated to follow strictly the vow of celibacy. Youngsters who have had no taste of sex life can easily follow the vow of celibacy. And once fixed in the principle of such a life, one can very easily continue to the highest perfectional stage, attaining the kingdom of the 3/4 energy of the Lord, in other words, the spiritual world. 1/4 is the material world, and 3/4 is the spiritual world. It is already explained that in the cosmos of 3/4 energy of the Lord, there is neither death nor fear, and one is full of the blissful life of happiness and knowledge. A householder attached to family life can easily give up such a life of sex indulgence if he or she has been trained in the principles of the life of a brahmachari. A householder is recommended to quit home at the end of 50 years, panchasurdvam manam vrajet, and live in a life in the forest. Then, being fully detached from family affection, he may accept the order of renunciation as a sannyasi, fully engaged in the service of the Lord. Any form of religious principles in which the followers are trained to pursue the vow of celibacy is good for the human being, because only those who are trained in that way can end the miserable life of material existence. The principle of nirvana, as recommended by Lord Buddha, the principles of nirvana, as recommended by Lord Buddha, are also meant for ending the miserable life of material existence. And this process, in the highest degree, is recommended here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, with clear perception of ideal perfection, although basically there is no difference between the process of Buddhists, Sankarites, and Vaishnavites. For promotion to the highest status of perfection, namely freedom from birth and death, anxiety and fearfulness, not one of these processes allows the follower to break the vow of celibacy. In other words, the vow of celibacy is there in Buddhism, or it should be there in Buddhism. It's there in the followers of Sankaracharya, meaning the Mayavadis, and in Vaishnava tradition also. Right. Anyway, I don't want to scare you too much with reading the rest of this, but you get the idea that the one thing that puts us in the material world, that attracts us to come to the material world, the one thing that keeps us in the material world is part of the ethos of this time that we're living in right now. It's being promoted in many, many different ways, and it's being taught to kids at an early age in public schools. So wake up and smell the roses, but they're not roses, they're bad smells of inauspicious things that are being peddled in the name of knowledge. See? So the one thing that keeps people in the material world is being glorified today, and it's destroying people's opportunity to get free of the cycle of birth and death. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So Maharaj, as we learned that we always should be engaged in the glorifying the senses of Krishna rather than
serving the senses.
Serving the senses. Okay, yeah. So, like
that's
for
what arti is. You're serving the senses of the Lord. You're offering a chamara fan. You're offering a peacock feather fan. You're offering ghee lamp. You're offering incense. You're offering food. These are all meant to please the senses of Krishna.
Yeah. So is the preaching, Maharaj, also considered as a glorifying the senses of Krishna?
The preaching is to help people understand Krishna. If they begin to understand, so there's two parts of knowledge. One is understanding yourself in your real position, or our real position as subordinate to Krishna. And number two is understanding the unique qualities of Krishna. So those are the two sections of knowledge. So that's to help people understand Krishna. If they begin to understand Krishna, and they understand what their real position is, their real identity is, then they become a devotee, and then they engage in pleasing the senses of Krishna. If you don't understand, like for example, let's say you are watching television, all of a sudden the advertisements come on. Go to Montreal and be happy. And then there's pictures of people smiling in a bar in Montreal, and the bar is very shiny and lights and so many bottles of whiskey and wine. And people are sitting around, they have nice teeth and nice bodies and nice clothes, and they're all, having a good time. And the whole idea is to entice you to buy an airline ticket to go from Seattle to Montreal to enjoy like the people look like they're enjoying. See, it's an advertisement. It's to entice you, right? So as long as we become fooled by all this phony advertisement, we waste our life. See? But now, Srimad Bhagavatam is advertising Krishna and the spiritual world, where nothing is phony, everything is real, because everything is eternal. What you're seeing in that advertisement for Montreal is all phony stuff. It's not eternal. It's very ephemeral. It's going to end very quickly. And you could end up having a miserable time there, right? So the point is, which advertisement are we going to believe? The Bhagavatam or going to Montreal for sense gratification, you see. So all the time there's advertisements, right? You watch television and all of a sudden, you're seeing some movie and all of a sudden they stop the movie and they show you the advertisements, right? And then you have to just sit there and listen to it, or you turn it off and then turn back on to see the movie, whatever. So but there's advertisement on the radio. There's constant advertisements going on, right? And they're all peddling things that you don't really need. But the more gadgets you buy, the more you become encumbered. Right? So Prabhupada is trying to explain what is the reality. The reality is you need four things, right? You need some food, you need some shelter, you need some protection, you need some sense gratification. He's not saying no sense gratification. When you eat prasadam, you're pleasing your senses. When you take 2 baths a day or 3 baths a day, you're pleasing your senses. When you dance and chant in Aarti, you are pleasing your senses, right? We don't deny. We're not doing vipassana. You walk into the temple, there's no deity, right? Like you walk into a Baha'i temple, right? There's no deity at all. It's just an empty space, right? and everyone's meditating, right? Not making any noise, not making any movement, and there's no prasadam, right? And then it's nothingness basically, right? They're teaching you to meditate on nothingness. So that is Buddhism, that's Vipassana, right? You go to Vipassana not to eat, not to, enjoy anything, is to meditate on nothingness, right? And people think, it was very good for me to do that, but I'm so happy to come back now and get back into somethingness, It gives me more energy to go into the somethingness. The whole thing is nonsense. Right.
There was a CNN recent article about a study done by a UK organization about mindfulness, which is a variation of vipassana, meditation for the youth. And then they found that after 8 years of study, it has not been effective on the teenagers. That's because the teenagers don't have any interest in following it.
In denying the senses?
Yes.
Yeah. That's why we don't deny the senses in Krishna consciousness, but we purify the senses, and so that we use our senses to please the senses of Krishna.
So coming back to his question, even preaching is also pleasing Lord, because the Lord says one who shares this message to others is very dear to him.
It's
I think it's in
18th
the
chapter, verses 68
and 69, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No one more dear to Krishna than one who preaches Bhagavad Gita. Or just like we heard last night, or Chaitanya said that the most munificent, the most generous, the most compassionate person is the one who's spreading the message of Bhagavatam around the world. Right?
But during preaching, I think like there are so many cases where people actually fall down, right? In terms of like, okay, we can consider this as glorifying, but
did Prabhupada fall down by preaching?
I mean, Prabhupada is kind of an exception, but there are, like you can see in India right now, so many preachers, but they start thinking themselves as a god over a period of time. Initially, they start with that okay, I mean, they started preaching, glorifying God, but over a period of time, they puffed up, and slowly, they don't even understand that they fall down.
You're not glorifying God, you're insulting God. And over 90% of the gurus in India are Mayavadis. They're not glorifying God, they're insulting God. Don't you understand? They deny that God is a person. That's an insult.
Are you referring to devotees falling down, or?
No, the preaching, preacher, the lot of gurus actually.
Of course, there are a lot of preachers.
Gurus. So many gurus, like over period of that, they start giving their own philosophy, right? I mean, to begin with, they start glorifying Krishna, but eventually, once they do, lot of examples that they start thinking that okay, they are themselves as God, and they start giving their own opinions. And
Yeah, but what's your point? We don't accept that. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your point?
no, we don't understand, but I'm thinking in general preaching I'm talking about.
But that's why we're hearing Bhagavatam, so we don't become phonies like those people. You understand?
In the first place, they weren't even glorifying Krishna, right?
No, the Mayavadis, they're insulting Krishna all the time.
So they don't fall down. They're still in the same place the whole time. They don't glorify Krishna at all. So basically, I think what Prabhupada's trying to say is that they first tried to glorify Krishna, but then they fell down, and they started like becoming puffed up. But what I think is that like they weren't devotees in the first place, and they're just because like you were saying, Maharaj, they're Mayavadis and they're insulting Krishna by what they're doing. They're not like glorifying Krishna at all, and they weren't even glorifying Krishna in the first place. So those are not real preachers.
They might have mentioned the name of Krishna, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Their concept that Krishna is not a person, he doesn't have senses.
Yeah.
Or when he comes in the material world, he has a material body. These are all insults. So they're not really preaching the glories of Krishna. They're insulting him. So therefore, if we understand who Krishna is, we're not going to say he doesn't have a body, or his body is material when he comes in the material world, or you have to reject Krishna in order to become spiritually advanced. You know, they say all kinds of miserable things, and we shouldn't give them any credit at all. You know, the only credit is they may be following celibacy, which is recommended in the Mayavad philosophy. So that is something that is in their benefit, for their benefit. But if they insult Krishna, there's no benefit. Any benefit is going to be nullified. Okay, so we'll stop right there and continue some more tomorrow. You see, we read the whole second canto, but how much of it do we remember? That's why we have to repeat. You know. So, did you, Prabhu, let's see, did,
I sent you about the assignment.
what?
Are you talking about the assignments?
The what?
Assignments?
Did you send your assignment?
Yeah.
When?
This morning, so probably didn't happen. Okay. Maybe we can.
I wanted to get Samarth's thing because I lost it. And Prabhuji just left.
So actually, Maharaj, just to be frank, I have asked Ria to do this.
That's all right.
Yeah, Ria did that, so
No
I
problem.
don't want to take credit for
Okay, go ahead.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandho Mohi Savadana Mate
Bandhu Mui Sabadana Mate
যাহারা প্রসাদে বাই এ বাবা তরিয়া যায় কৃষ্ণ প্রাপ্তি হয় যাহা হইতে
কৃষ্ণ প্রাপ্তি হইতে
গুরুমুখ পদ্ম বক্য চিতিতে করিয়া
গুরুমুখ পদ্ম বক্য চিতিতে করিয়া
অরনা করি হো মানে আশা
অরনা করিয়া মানে আশা
শ্রী গুরু চরণে রতি ऐसे उतम गति जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्व आशा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते प्रेम भक्ति जहा होते अविद्या विनाश जाते वेद गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनार बंधु लोके नाथ लोके राजीवाना हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पदा जया हा हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया एवे जस गुशुक त्रिभुवाना श्रीला प्रभुपाद पतित पावना जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामीनिति नामिने Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Parents of the whole Shri Radha Krishna Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Nandamai Ki Jai, Nandamai Ki Jai, Samudera Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Hai Bol, all those Shri Guru, Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Prabhupada Ki Jai.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and Master devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your frame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada.